Hey everybody, Kevin Eikenberry with a Facebook Live. Well, not exactly. We recorded a Facebook Live, number 12 in our series a few minutes ago, but we had something happen to us called Zoom bombing, which I had no idea what it was until a few minutes ago. And someone, unbeknownst to us, showed up on the feed doing something we didn't really want them to be doing. And so we deleted the post and we're starting over. And I guess that always says a little bit something about what we're all dealing with now with technology. Okay, we'll try to figure out how to not let that happen again in the future. But now instead, I'm going to re-record my thoughts, not on a live stream, but just recording it right here. Then we'll upload it in a minute. Tonight, we are talking about how we all deal with this pandemic that we never expected, and how do we deal with it in the workplace. And so tonight's Q&A is really 4 questions that I got from one client earlier today. And they are 4 related questions. So I'm going to share what he wrote to me and then give you some thoughts. And then we'll get it posted so you can watch it. Okay. So the questions that he gave me, said, Kevin, how do we keep our folks from being in a place of short-term worry? How do we reduce short-term worry? How do we push back on what he called the dark noise of the news and the rumors? How do we keep our teammates positive, and how do we change to long-term thinking? Well, they are all connected. And so I'm going to give some answers to Scott based on what little bit I know about what's going on there, really answering these questions that could apply to any of us. So first, let's talk about the attitude piece. Well, our attitude, or our thoughts and our feelings, are impacted by what's in our environment. And clearly, right now, it's easy to have a negative attitude or have a negative spin, put a negative spin on everything that we experience. So if we're a teammate or if we're a team leader, the best thing we can do to influence the attitude of others is through our attitude, right? I've asked thousands of people over the years in live audiences if they thought that enthusiasm was contagious. Nearly everyone will nod, raise their hand, or whatever. And I agree. So if you want to have others around you be more positive, what you can best do to influence them is to be positive yourself. Your enthusiasm will be contagious. Unfortunately, the negative attitude of others is also contagious. So it's important that we do the best we can to remain positive, recognize and perhaps prepare for the worst, but be ready for and take action towards something better. So one of the things we can do around the negative attitude is to project a more positive one ourselves. I know that isn't always easy, but it's one of the best things that we can do. Remember, we can't change someone else's attitude, but we can influence it. And that's one of the best ways we can do it. Related to that was the question about short-term worry, right? And so what we can do in relationship to that is just help people see the facts and not just the opinions. And I know that if there's ever been a time that it's hard to separate fact from opinion, now is probably it. But the more that we can help people do that and say, well, where did you hear that? Or what do you believe? What leads you to believe that? The more we can keep the knowns known, the better chance we will have of keeping people in a better spot. Okay. So another one of the questions was related to helping people, or dealing with, as a leader, I think, really, to push back on what was called the dark noise, the news and the rumors. Well, if we're talking about what people are worried about in your business, in your industry, what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to my job? Well, I heard that what they're going to do is this. I'm sure that's what they're going to do. I'll bet that's what they're going to do. That's what you're hearing. That's the rumor. That's the gossip. Let me tell you this. Gossip is like a mushroom. It grows in the dark. So one of the things we can do as a leader is let people know everything we know as soon as we know it. And the more we can shed light on the future, the more people can't stay in the gossip. because we're giving them the facts. We're giving them the reality. And if it doesn't line up with the gossip, it will squelch that gossip and it will turn that around. But we have to stay after it. We have to keep communicating. We have to keep letting people know. We have to answer questions as honestly as we can. I heard on the radio this morning a doctor say that doctors are taught to tell people the truth because humans have good coping mechanisms. And I think that that's probably true. It makes sense to me, and I think it applies to us organizationally as well. Let people know what's going on. Let them have the chance to cope. It's harder to cope when they don't know the uncertainty, the unknown. And when they're in a group, even if that group is remote, the gossip starts to swirl. Things start to spin up and things get out of hand and work can't get done. It's not healthy for people and the work can't get done either. So that's some things we can do. Be honest, be clear, share what you can when you can share it as soon as you can share it. And the last question was about how do we move people to long-term thinking? And I would say if we can move people to long-term thinking, we're going to help solve the other questions too. So a couple of things. First of all, if your folks are now working remotely, and the longer that they're now working remotely, the more likely it is that their frame of reference, their perspective point begins to shorten. Once we're working in isolation, we start to, some people right now with cabin fever are saying that the walls are closing in on them. I'm not really saying that. What I'm really saying though is that people tend to focus their work as being more about the to-do list and the task list than about the long term. So as a leader, help people see the long term. If you think about perspective in a picture, when something is close to us, it can look really large. You know that boulder that's in your shoe? And when you take your shoe off, it's like this little pebble. Sometimes when things are right up close to us, they look insurmountable. They look huge. They look, I don't know how we'll get over it. But when we look at that in the big picture, over the long haul, that mountain isn't quite as big. So if we can move people to long-term thinking by helping them see the future, even if we don't know what the future looks like exactly, even if things are still uncertain in our industry. But if we can help people see the bigger picture, we will help them a lot. We will help their mental state, but then we can start to get them moving on, working on something of value again. One of the best things we can do for our team members' mental state right now is to give them something that they can get their arms around and they can have some control of. And that can be their work. Help people see how what they're doing will make a difference. Give them some meaningful work to do. Let them get their arms around something. Listen, if you're in a business right now where things are slow and you're not sure, there's not as much work as there was a month ago. Well, you've probably got process improvements that you've been wanting to do for years. And you've probably got projects that have never quite made the top of the list, but it still would add value, that maybe now's the time to work on those things. Give those to people. Let them see how they are useful in the long term and that they're not just busy work. But once people have something to put their arms around and that they can have some control over, it will help their entire mental state. And as I've been saying for a couple of weeks, motion beats moping. Get people moving, doing something. And when we can help them see that in the big picture, it's going to help with the attitude. It's going to reduce some of the worry. It's going to get rid of some of the gossip. If we will help people see how they can do something today that will make a difference, it will make a difference for them. So I want to thank Scott for these questions. I want to thank you for watching, even though now there was no chance for you to interact with me because of our Zoom bomb that we had a few minutes ago. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you'll come back tomorrow, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to do this again, hopefully live again. We are not going to do it on Friday, as we have the last couple of Fridays, but we're going to be announcing a new way we're going to do it moving forward early next week, probably Monday, but we're not sure exactly. But we will let everybody know on Facebook and in other ways how and when that's going to happen. But tomorrow night, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be back. I hope you'll be with me then. Until then, be well, be safe. be remarkable.